Fellow Croydon Harriers, fellow Croydon Harriers, happy birthday and many congratulations on this magnificent centenary. Warm greetings, actually quite hot greetings. It's already over 32 degrees here in Curacao in the southern Caribbean. We're down close to the South American coast. On a clear day you can see Venezuela over there on the horizon. Not a clear day today, so you'll have to take my word for it. I can remember the club's 75th birthday, 1995. Here's a picture from it with some of my old mates. See if I can remember their names. Paul Beck, John Gostello, Trevor Pettican, Brian Davey, Baron White, yours truly, Ian Statter, Dennis Wallington, Ian Grant, Bob Ben, and Chris King. I hope you're all watching. There are, of course, a few missing. In particular, I think of Dave Betts. Maybe he took the photo. I can also remember the 1970 50th birthday because I joined the club as a schoolboy half-miler in 1969. And after a winter of rugby for the Old Whitgiftians, my first race, I think, in 1970 was the Surrey Championships at Motspur Park. The 800 metres, I think they'd switched to metric by then, maybe not, it might have been a half mile, but I think 800 metres on the cinders there. That was a race won by the Olympian Martin Winbolt Lewis. And in second place was somebody we all know, the wonderful Mike Fleet. There he is again. And I think I was fourth in that race, so Croydon had two in the top four. 1970 was quite a year. I remember going to Edinburgh in the National Athletics League for Croydon. That must have been just before the Commonwealth Games, probably my first ever flight. And in those Commonwealth Games, of course, Don Fairclough of Croydon won the bronze medal in the marathon. We also went to Oxford, I recall, to run in the National League at Iffley Road, on the famous track where another inspiration for me, Sir Roger Bannister, had 16 years earlier broken the 4-minute mile barrier. That's now a long, long time ago. Also in 1970, I went on one of the great Croydon Harriers tours to the continent, again led and arranged by Mike, a great inspiration. And at the end of that year, we had a reminder of how sad life can be. Another great inspiration for me was Lillian Board, who in 68 won the silver medal in the 400 metres at the Olympics, and 69 was the gold medalist in the 800 metres in the European Championships. In 1970, we thought the golden girl of British athletics would do even better, but sadly she didn't seem to be herself. And it was all explained when in September she was diagnosed with cancer, and she died just a few months later on Boxing Day 1970. Here's the report from the newspaper. She died as she lived, a fighter. She was an example to us all. I hope that I will never be called upon to show such courage, but if I am, then I pray that I may do so, half as well as Lillian Board. The following year, I also went on a tour, I think, to Arnhem, on the Croydon-Arnhem link, and that was the beginning of my lifelong association with the Dutch kingdom, most of it in the Dutch Caribbean, but also a bit in the European majority of the Netherlands. Both our daughter and son live in the Netherlands now, and both our adorable grandchildren live there. There were some other great tours. I remember 1977 going to Austria and to Germany. Dusseldorf, we were there for the World Cup, where Steve Ovett came of age in the 1500 metres against a world-class field, which he, it's no exaggeration to say, he destroyed on the back straight in a matter of, 20 yards or so. He took 5 or 10 yards out of them, and they could not reach him. So that was a great privilege to be there for that race. Earlier that year, I'd come out to the Dutch Caribbean for the first time, and just on a 3-month assignment for the accounting firm for which I worked. And while I was here, Ian Grant, who I mentioned earlier, came out to see me. And then when I got married here a couple of years later, 1979, George Thomas of Croydon Harriers came to the wedding along with my brother. And then some years later, in 2007, I became patron of Croydon Harriers, and you did this wonderful certificate for me. It's been a privilege to be patron ever since, and I really appreciate the affection and the attention that I've had from Croydon Harriers throughout the years. I'd like to leave you with a story involving the great Caribbean sprinter, not Usain Bolt, although he's involved a bit, but Chirandi Martina. Chirandi was born and brought up in Curacao, trained on the same track that I trained on back in the 70s, 80s, and a bit in the 90s. Not an all-weather track, not a grass track, but just a dirt track with plenty of heavy stones to avoid. Chirandi was coached in those early years by a good friend of mine, Wendell Prince, who, like Mike and like thousands of other heroes, who I call the salt of the earth, who give their time and efforts week in, week out, year in, year out. And Wendell was certainly one of those. And he noticed very early on that Chirandi had terrific potential, and Wendell helped make sure that it happened. Chirandi's first Olympics were 2008, where he was 4th in the 100 meters and 2nd, to Usain Bolt of course, in the 200 meters. But sadly, on the replay, it turned out that Chirandi had just clipped the inside of his lane with his left shoe, and therefore, quite correctly, but sadly, he was disqualified. But, in a tremendous show of sportsmanship, Sean Crawford of the United States, who had been promoted to the silver medal position, gave his medal to Chirandi. And that, to me, kind of sums it all up. As the poet said, in the final analysis, it's not who won or lost, but how you played the game. And Chirandi, and I'm sure nearly everybody in sport, play the game the right way. They play fair. A great regret that we can't be together on the 20th of September 2020, but I'm sure we'll get together again next year and do this properly. In the meantime, enjoy your athletics and all the best. Bye!